Mexico. Of course, the kids call it home because this is home to us. I went to the old Albuquerque High School at Broadway and Central. Any Bulldogs? Yes! And I also, and I am so grateful to have gone to the old Albuquerque High School. It's a remarkable story.
Class of what?
70. Class of 70.
Well, we beat you.
Get my balls back?
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah,
It's a really good shot.
Yeah, we beat you for the city title.
For?
It was basketball. Class of 70.
So is this Highland or?
No, this is West Mason.
West Mesa, okay. Well, in my year, my senior year, we did play Hobbs. And of course, everybody in Hobbs was just, I mean, they were all a foot taller than every single player on our team. And so we did not prevail, but it was a great game. And so very, very proud of that. Graduated from the University of New Mexico. I married, love of my life, John Jones. Now, try not to hold it against him. He's a Santa Fe demon. He joined
So my wife.
But John joined the Navy, so we traveled around the world for 23 years. He retired as a Navy commander. We have two terrific young adults, Robert, who is a Java developer, who moved to New Orleans just before the hurricane. So Mom was just really happy with this.
Bad timing.
Very bad timing. And our daughter, Mary, is in law school at Temple University in Philadelphia. I served 4 terms in the New Mexico legislature where I was assigned to the Tax and Revenue Committee, the Elections Committee. There's a whole slew of committees. It was really an honor to represent you in the legislature. And during that 8 years, I wrote a lot of legislation. And that legislation went from taxes, and who knew that I was going to enjoy tax policy? So if you want to talk tax policy, man, I'm your woman. But from taxes to election law and public policy, and also protecting your money. And that's a big issue. And so here I am. I'm running for Congress because our country is facing profound problems, and they're not getting any better. We simply have to change course. Our national debt is out of control. Our vital entitlement programs are running out of money. Our economy is floundering, struggling with heartbreaking levels of unemployment, much of it long-term. We're losing influence abroad. The world's worst terrorist nation, Iran, is about to gain nuclear weapons. And our own military, I don't know if you watched the discussions on television today, but they are facing some of the most disastrous cuts that they've ever faced. We have to change direction. And there is much to bring to the program. And what I would be so honored to do is to represent the state of New Mexico, who in my opinion is going to yet again come to the aid of our nation. We are a resource-rich state. We can change the dynamic and become energy independent. We have something that is so remarkable, I can't believe we're not talking about it. So this is my only ode to geekdom right here. We have rare earth minerals. Those are the minerals that help you make glass that go on your cell phones. They help your lighters for your grills. A lot of things that are absolutely essential in the manufacturing of things. Well, China cut us off about 4 months ago. New Mexico has 14% of the world's deposits. There are companies all over the country who need the resources that we can extract from the ground better and safer than any other people that I know. And we need to step up to the plate, not only for our country, but can you say jobs? We need long-term jobs and careers, and that's what that means. So for all of those reasons, I want to go to Congress. And you may well know, but let me tell you, I make only one promise, aside from working very, very hard. But my promise to you is that before I cast that vote, I will read the legislation. Whether it's in committee or on the floor, but that's my job. And if for whatever reason the legislation's being crammed down my throat and I cannot read it, my vote's no. Because my job is to do exactly that for you. My job is to make a judgment on that legislation. Now, mostly in the process, I'm going to be coming back to you for context, because really good legislation that benefits a lot of people, you have a lot of input about context. And so I need your help in that regard. So with that said, I would love to answer some questions, but most importantly, I ask you, send me to Washington!
Let me just say something real quick if I can. And by the way, I want to make sure, again, everybody gives a nice round of applause to our newest member of the council. Simon is a breath of fresh air, and we're all excited and delighted to have him join us. Janice and I have known each other for a long, long time. I have nothing but the utmost respect for her, as I think does everyone on both sides of the aisle who have ever had an opportunity and a pleasure to work with her. She is, unlike her opponent, she works very, very, very well with everyone. She doesn't go in and stick her finger in people's faces and tell them how to do things. She rolls her sleeves up and goes to work and tries to get people to join her in changing. That's what leadership is all about, in changing the way things are done. So she is someone that I have the utmost respect for, and I know that if we could get her to Washington to represent us, it'd be a wonderful thing. And so that's why I'm so proud to be able to help her and try to do as much as I can. So I would urge you to, it's going to be a very difficult election. And I just would urge you to make some phone calls, talk to your neighbors and friends, and there's really a clear difference this year in who we send to Washington. And I know in my heart that this is the right person, the right choice, and the right time. So I just wanted to have an opportunity to say that. So, and we really appreciate you being here. With that, I'm sure
it's an honor. Thank you very much.
Should be happy to take some questions. So, if anyone has any questions.
I just wanted to mention again that Meg has some yard signs in his vehicle, and I'm definitely going to put one up in my yard, front yard, and back gate. And people are just going to say I'm putting the sign up so I know who I am, but they won't read the whole sign.
Since you have the same first name, it seems.
I would say, well, and we spell it right too.
Yeah,
I'll
there you
tell
go.
That's why are you doing that?
That's your Tokaya.
My neighbors are going to know who I'm voting for.
Thank you, Janice. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it's a matter of recognition or name recognition. Yeah, I think if people got to know you better, I think that they're going to like you. So, do you have any polls out there besides the journal poll?
Absolutely. And so an interesting thing about the journal poll, and please do not be discouraged, I am not. We went out in the field July 17th. And because there were no polls at that time, this is kind of statistics and then lies and then damn statistics. But here we go. When we polled, I polled Heather Wilson and Governor Romney because I had to be able to validate what we were doing. They had real numbers. And at that time, with regard to this race, my opponent is exactly where she was in Sandaroff's poll. There were still a lot of undecideds. It's exactly what we saw. The good news from my perspective is Governor Romney, even in on July 17th, was within 4 points. Heather Wilson's race is actually closed or narrowed a little bit. We actually polled about 3 times as much, and the way that we did our poll was a reflection of voter registration. So our poll wasn't complete until we got the requisite percentage of registered voters to actually answer our poll. So I'm actually encouraged. For me, you're right. You know what's amazing? I served 8 years in the legislature. I took the webcams up there. You would think everybody and their brother knows me. And the truth is they don't. They simply don't. And so there's a lot of undecideds. There's plenty of room for movement. So you're absolutely right. If you would tell people about me, that is really what is going to make the difference. And it's personal. And the one thing that's kind of a remarkable story, and I look at all these faces, I have about 300 active volunteers, and it is absolutely humbling that people believe that strongly that they would show up at 8 in the morning and not go home until we get done and they're volunteering. It's just remarkable. But we need more. It's going to be personal. And I'll take suggestions.
And your headquarters again is on Pennsylvania?
We have a headquarters at Pennsylvania in Manal, and there are signs there. And if you and I actually have asked the team to call you about getting a big sign, if you would like it. There are big signs, there are yard signs. We do have some billboards that I think went up earlier this week, and I don't know if any of you have seen any of the commercials.
Yeah.
Right.
What area?
Oh, that one's my friend Howard McCall, who that's been up for a while. That one will stay. But these are some other ones, so which is good.
How do you feel that you did on the debate the other day? What area you seen or heard about?
Well, two different things. The congregation Albert debate, I would say that was probably close to a draw. There are things that I know in terms of specific questions that I know that the issue is being persuasive. And I know, for example, exactly what the labs do. I don't have to guess because I'm a DOE contractor. I know how it works. And but in those venues, do you always get to say exactly how it works and why it makes a difference? And that always makes me a little bit uncomfortable because our laboratories, if you listen to the newspapers, and they do irritate me, you would think the only thing our labs do is nuclear weapons. And I'm just here to tell you that that's just not true. It's just not true. Is it the genesis of much of the research? Yes. But the other things that our labs do is really quite remarkable. To suggest that any member of Congress is going to walk in and change the mission of a lab by telling the contractors what they're going to do is dreaming. I'm just telling you, they're just dreaming, and it does not work that way. So that part was that part of the story is much harder to come out. But one of the reasons I am such a good candidate for Congress is I understand the work not only at the labs but at our military bases. And I'm living, breathing proof to tell you that when Congress does not pass a budget, what happens to the city of Albuquerque in particular. And just in round numbers, I'm going to tell you that we've got about 10,000 people that are not working. And they are not working because their contracts have not been funded. It's not that they've been fired, but their contracts aren't funded. It's kind of like being the boss. I'm going to go to you and say, you're a great worker. You want to stick around though, but hey, I can't pay you. What do you think? And that's what's going on. And people don't just walk away because we all have clearances in the balance. And clearances cost the American taxpayer money. So we hold on with our IRAs, our 401ks, but they're hanging on by their fingernails. It's really terrible. And, but it has a huge impact on our city. So that part, not so good. At the NAOP debate, you know,
And NAOP, by the way, is the largest commercial real estate organization, National Association of Industrial and Office Properties. These are commercial real estate realtors for the most part, and they have a very large following, and they usually meet once a month for lunch, and this was a breakfast debate they had Tuesday morning.
Right, and I believe, obviously I was there, but when it comes to specifics, you know, I'm probably not the best politician you've ever heard, but I like the details. I actually know. And so I get a little irritated with the newspaper. They'd ask for a specific response on what we need to do for our lending environment to help jumpstart real estate. And I actually have real specific answers. One would be to repeal Dodd-Frank. The second one is to reinstate part of Glass-Steagall. These are very specific measures that you can do, but I am not sure that the reporters actually understood what I was talking about. But if you are in the financial industry, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And those are very specific things that Congress can do. And so I thought it was a great debate, although without being, I was kind of surprised to learn about the fact that my opponent had the most diverse background of any candidate in the nation. That surprised me.
Say it again, Jen. She had to do what?
That's according to her.
What did she say?
The most diverse background of any candidate in the nation.
Oh.
That's what Michelle claimed.
And I was just kind of surprised. You know, so that you get stuff like that in debates. So, do I think I won that one? Yes, I do. But again, this is about persuading. You know, this is personal to all of you, and you've got to make a judgment as to what skill set, what personality set is going to work in Washington. And I will just leave you with this. Much of the work that I did, the really serious, nitty-gritty work, I was in a legislature where there were 25 Republicans and 45 Democrats. Do you think that the Republicans ran roughshod over that body? Absolutely not. And the only way that really important legislation got done is if you worked together. And the things that were really important to me, very goofy stuff, in order to get it done. Is my name on it? No, because you have to decide what's important, that your name is on it or that you do the job. And to me, it was much more important to get it done. Thank you.
How many more debates?
There are a number of debates. There is one on health care at the Unitarian Church on the 19th. There is the 22nd of September. There was one focusing on military veterans issues out in Moriarty. And then there will be the 3 televised debates. And it is unclear to me whether or not there will be an audience. But I encourage you, if you have that opportunity, to come. And what's more important, if there's questions and answers, I think that's really when you get to see whether or not they're real answers or not.
Janice, real quick, if I could you just describe the district? I know it's been reshaped
Oh, sure.
based on reapportionment.
You bet.
And a lot of people may not be familiar, and I'm certainly not, with exactly where it goes. You mentioned Moriarty, so why don't you just tell us what it encapsulates?
Sure. Congressional District 1 is all of Bernalillo County and all of Torrance County. So that will take you all the way down to Willard, all the way out to Klein's Corners. We'll go all the way over on the west side, all the way to Tohajali, all the way west in Bernalillo County. We have 11 precincts in Sandoval County that are pretty narrowly described. So we have the town of Bernalillo with Bernalillo High School, and then it goes over on the east side of I-25, all of Placitas, all the way up to Buttigirbs. Now, you all know that there are more cows there than there are anything else, but there you go. And then we have 3 precincts in Santa Fe County that are just on the east side of 344 going into Edgewood.
Like Stanley?
Not Stanley.
Okay,
Don't
not as
have
far as
Stanley.
Stanley.
No, 344 only. So it going from I-40, you go north a little bit, and then there are 3 precincts that all butt up against 344, and then there are 4 precincts in Valencia County. There used to be 11 precincts down in Valencia County. So as you come off of the escarpment by Harris Canyon, all the way down into Las Lucas, it does cover part of Bosque Farms, but not very much.
So 5 counties, basically. Two of all, and then 3 of pieces.
Right.
So 5 counties, wow.
But for example, I don't have any of Rio Rancho. If you are west of the river, in Santa, nothing. And so, but if you're in Bernalillo County, we have it all. So it really didn't change. I mean, it changed a little bit in terms of the populations, but it's a big change, especially for the people in Valencia County.
And it's about 700,000 people, is that correct?
Correct, correct.
Each congressional district is about 435, so each one's about 700,000 people.
Correct, correct.
In your opinion, how fast can we get this hemorrhage of finances under control by the federal government? If you read the Wall Street Journal this week or the Economist magazine, you've seen the Secretary of the Treasury is selling half of the stock we bought for $800 billion in AIG, and the market value of it when he's selling it this week is only $18 billion. So they're out of cash. He made the statement that one day that they only had $5 billion in the bank. Now they can print more, but the fact that we're taking it in the shorts for those kind of numbers and people aren't paying attention to what's going on.
Well, the backside of what you're describing, and here's the fallout, for people who have savings, CDs, things like that, you're getting 1.15% interest. Pretty soon, I mean, for people on fixed incomes who are living off of that income, this particular action is driving that level of interest. And we're not going to make it. So in answer to your question, it's going to take us almost as much time to get out as it did to get in. And this isn't rocket science. This is, if you did this at your own home, you would choose to make some sacrifices, that you would recognize that it was going to take you time. And for me, the strategy is very similar. The sooner we can pay down some of this principal, the sooner the interest payments are going to be reduced. And when I think about the daily interest payments, and how many is it, $680 million a day in interest? I think that's the number. I can barely even think about that. And so for all of you who pay interest, do you get anything out of the interest that you pay on your houses? Do you have anything tangible? Nothing. So it's time to stop that. So we're going to have to make some very tough choices. For me, I would like to see us pull down the debt by 25% within the next 5 years. That's pretty aggressive and may not be possible because
which debt? The annual one or the?
No, not the deficit, the debt. The
16 trillion?
Right. And I know that that is probably a pipe dream, but I understand that if you don't bring some urgency to the table, then you don't get any of that. Probably 10 years, but if we pull down our debt even by 25%, it changes our standing in the world. And so let me go back to national security. The reason that we are a power in the world is not our military, it's our economy. And right now, we have no stroke left because we're broke. And that part really, really scares me. So it really is a matter of deciding that we're going to make a commitment to pay down the debt. And any pieces that we can get to pull it back is better. But the deficit, you can't keep spending what you don't have. Even this year, and today they just extended the budget with another continuing resolution, but last year's continuing resolution, the expenditures were roughly $3.6 trillion, but we're only taking in $2.2 trillion. So the deficit is $1.4 trillion every year, annual. That is then added to the debt because we didn't pay it off. So we have, I don't care how you slice it, we have a spending problem, and we're going to have to make some very unpleasant choices. And we're going to have to make those choices very carefully. And I don't want you to think that I'm a radical about this because I'm looking at sequestration, and one of the problems with sequestration is in January, literally turning 200,000 members of the military loose into the economy without jobs. That, you know, and economies are kind of fragile things. That worries me because our private sector, while there is money sitting on the sidelines, until we change the regulatory environment, that money's going to sit there. And so in the interim, here are some things that we can do. We can change some of the regulatory environment. And one of the things, before I make your eyes roll in the back of your head, but I want you to think about the cost of compliance. And when I say that, for any business, there is a cost literally to pay your taxes. There is a cost to actually fill out the paperwork so your business is in compliance with a myriad of laws. And that cost, the average for our nation is about 20% of revenue. It's an astounding number. So one of the things that I think we can do which will impact our economy is to start pulling back and asking the questions, does this make sense? So that the cost of compliance is down to 10%. And then that the rest of that money can be freed up to add more jobs, to invest in businesses, and maybe get some of the money that's sitting on the side back into what we're doing. One of the other things that will help too is changing our tax code. And two things there. The manufacturing companies that went overseas went for two reasons, maybe three. One, early on, perhaps for labor. Labor is not an issue anymore. One was for taxes, but also supply chain. And also energy. Now, our companies that are in India are struggling with the fact that their energy is not reliable. Boy, does that mess up manufacturing. And it makes the cost of goods go up tremendously. So we have companies that would like to come home because we have affordable, available energy. The problem is our rules, our tax rules for repatriating profit is about 83%. And you just look at it and you go, well, shoot, why would I do that? So we need to change it. This is not, I'm not talking capital gains. I'm talking about the rules for repatriating profits. We need to change it so that we have companies that are operating here. That's where you get jobs. None of this is very sexy stuff here, but this is the nitty-gritties of government and how we're going to change things.
I think there's a couple of things we could do with a tax
Okay.
code. One of them is to set a basic, say $36,000 a year. Below that, you don't pay any taxes. The other thing I don't like is that people that are not paying taxes get a refund. I think if you pay taxes in and you have enough deductions or whatever to get you past the point that you get a total refund, that's honest. But for people to get $4,000, $5,000, and $6,000 back and didn't pay anything in, that amounts to a sizable chunk of change. One of the other things that Congress needs to do is change their dang rules. How in the world in the Constitution can you let one person like Harry Reid set on some 45 major legislations that's been passed by the House right now? It says that when one house passes it, it goes to the other when they vote on it. And this guy is sitting over there with 30 labor bills, a bunch of other stuff. He will not bring it to the floor of the Senate for a vote. We need to get pressure on those people to take that part of their rulemaking out and say when it comes over there, he's got 30 days, he's got to throw it on the floor and bring it to a vote. Whether he wins or loses is not his choice, it's our choice.
Well, so one of the hardest fights I ever had in my legislative career was changing the rules, and I got to do it twice. So let me go back to the tax part. It is time to change our tax code. It should be simple, fair, and easy to administer, and you should be measuring it by simple metrics. You should have, if you are an individual responder, it should never take you more than 8 hours to file your taxes. Never, ever. It should be simple, fair, and easy to administer. And I'm with you. I believe that everybody should pay something, even if it's $1. And to go with what you're saying, I appreciate about the giving tax credits to people who have not paid in. But something worse has actually happened. We have taken the right from a whole group of people to complain because they don't pay taxes. It's a very interesting model when you start thinking about what happens to someone who knows that they don't pay taxes, but they're getting tax money back. They lose their voice. Very interesting phenomenon. And so I think the overt act of paying tax, but simple, fair, easy to administer across the board. I'm tired of the government picking winners and losers through our tax code. But that being said, I want to talk about the rules for a second. Now, I know you all know that I took the webcams to Santa Fe. Some people say, is that the best thing you did? And the answer is no. The best rule fight I ever engaged in was the right for you to review legislation before the session began. Lord Almighty, I had no idea that that could be such a hard fight. And all I said was, you know, it's not a done deal, but I thought you had the right to read it. And that was a floor fight where the speaker literally held the clock till the last minute because they didn't. And this is how it is. So you have to be willing to go in and actually work on some of those rules. One of the things that I intend to do when I get to Congress is, because I'll be a peon, don't worry, peons get to do rule changes. And so one of the rule changes is how Congress works. You know, right now they go to work on Tuesday, so they can come home at noon on Thursday and say that they are in their districts. What a crock-a-doodle. It's just, I mean, it's hardly like you can even think. So here's what I believe is a better plan. I believe our members of Congress should go in and they should work 3 weeks straight, Monday through Saturday. Then they should come home and be home for 2 weeks. Two things would happen here. One is you would know your colleagues, because it's easy to name call for people that you don't know. But why would you give me your vote if you had no idea of whether or not I understood your state's issues? Why would you do that? You have to have relationships to actually work collaboratively to make good legislation. The other thing that happens is, right now when your representatives come home, how many of you have actually talked to your representatives on the weekend? You know, they're exhausted. They are exhausted. You know, they got to put their house back together, they've got kids, I mean, it's tough. But the plane ride alone So I don't think it does any good for you to have a semi-conscious representative having a town hall for 45 minutes.
We've had
It
one
just-
for quite a while.
One who sleeps on his floor in his office.
But it just
On a
doesn't.
mat in his office. I don't get that.
But at the end of the day, you actually have the answers, and I truly believe that. So I'm going to engage in that fight, and then I will go after the single issue legislation. And then when it comes to the budget, sometimes there are no rules that you can make that will make a difference. But I will lead the charge, and I will encourage my colleagues that if the Senate is still deadlocked by the time I get there, that we will go and stand on the Senate floor until they get it done. You would be surprised. And there's no rules that would control that. So you use everything you can to make a difference, and I'm willing to do that. Yes?
I mean, I have a solution to the problem, but it could put you out of a job. I still think they should just send Congress home for about 2 years, and I think we'd all be a lot better off. We don't need any more rules and laws. We just need to deal with the ones that we have. But you know what I'm saying? But obviously, that we don't want that to happen to you. We want you to be there for us, but.
Well, I'm saying, but here's the backside. So let me talk about term limits for just a second. When I first was elected, I said, oh, yes, 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 we should have term limits. Then I got to Santa Fe, and I said, holy moly, we can't have term limits. Because there's professional staff. And the professional staff kind of get just too much power, and they have agendas. And so without Congress there, then you have an agenda. You can't fire the professional staff as a voter. You can fire me, and you should. If I don't do the job, you should fire me. But I worry about that professional staff. So I have kind of come full circle on term limits. So I actually, while the ultimate term limit is when you fire me, that is the ultimate term limit. But I think about 12 years in the House and 18 in the Senate is probably about right, with one caveat, that the professional staff must be term limited to, I'll give you a number, 15 years. They cannot stay in that same slot for more than 15 years.
Okay,
Yes,
the professional staff, I didn't know about this either. So can you explain it to me a little more? Like when you get elected, do you go to Washington and you have a professional staff?
The professional staff is the overarching sort of nonpartisan staff that makes the operations run. Where it makes a big difference is there are rules about how you write legislation, and it must go through the professional offices. And Rory and I have both been through this. Even though we have a nice nonpartisan group, we would get legislation that was incorrectly written, where pages were dropped out. It wasn't an accident. I promise you, it's not an accident. And so when the legislation gets rolled out, doesn't matter when you get it put in, it's very interesting. And that professional staff goes over many different types of committees.
And who hires this professional staff?
The congressional, like the Congressional Budget Office is one of the ones that actually hires them, but there is an overarching committee that actually does this. It is not the staff that is like a member of Congress's staff. I get to hire that. And they are at the same mercy as everybody else, literally. And so here's the lesson. He who knows the rules, rules. So you've got to learn the rules really quickly. And those folks who've been around, they know the rules, and they just been there. They just kind of send you around the circle. It's kind of sad. And so the idea is to learn it as quickly as you can.
Well, thank you. That's very interesting.
One
Learn
of the
something every
problems
day.
with that is the fact that when legislations get proposed, it's that staff that actually writes the bills. And we don't have any control over that. That's why Obamacare came out to be such a mess. It's because it was written by the bureaucrats. When Congress passes laws, they pass the front page and they leave the writing of the law to the bureaucrats. And if you don't think that has an effect on your business,
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Anyway, I don't want to take over your meeting. I mean, I love the insider baseball part of making legislation because I really respect our process. I've lived all over the world. I know what it's like to be in countries where there are kings or other types of leaders. I know our system of 3 branches of government is tough, but it is remarkable. And for that part, yes, I'm guilty. I love this legislative part. It takes a lot of work, but I love it.
Well,
Yes, sir.
just to allude to what you just said, didn't I just hear something on the radio the other day about the 4th branch of government, again, about administrative regulation? hear about that? I mean, isn't that the truth? I mean, what you were just saying before.
Well, that, you know, I do look at regulation, so, you know, I like to get in the weeds. It's hard to campaign on the weeds. But one of the problems that I see right now is, you know, we have an EPA office that actually enforces the Clean Air and Clean Water Act. And here's what happens with our current fugitive dust regulation. Some businesses will go and comply with the fugitive dust regulation, which automatically puts them out of compliance with the Fugitive Water Act. How can we do this and expect our economy to, you just simply cannot set it up so that no matter what somebody does, they've got a black sheep. You've got to set it up so that there's a clear path for them to comply and be good citizens.
So why do you think that nobody in Congress has been able to do any of this?
You want my opinion?
Oh, yes. Truthful opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
We're all adults here.
Okay. I actually believe that for right now, a few more women need to go to Congress. The reason I say that is we do it differently. We do it differently. One of the things, and with all respect to all the gentlemen here that I did see in Santa Fe, but I see it in Washington too, the guys can choose up teams really easily and decide to not do anything. They just stand there and they pee in the middle, and I'm in the middle. I don't like it. And I learned, it took a while to figure out how do you change that dynamic. And there are lots of different ways. One is having a public hissing fit. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I do know that you have a very hard time with women having a public hissing fit. Very hard time. So you can't do that all the time, obviously. But I learned other strategies to actually stop that so that we were having a conversation versus this stalemate. Did we win all the time? No. No, but I know that there is this part about how moms and women solve problems that I believe right now will help us actually solve some problems. And it's a different way of talking about it. And while I probably insulted every man in the room here, it is not.
They've heard it before.
The truth is once you get to that level, their engagement in the conversation is absolutely productive. But it's how you start that conversation. And I'm just surprised that it makes such a difference.
But I have to tell you, in Washington, it's the women that scare me more than the men. Some of those women that, holy geez. So maybe it has more to do with the heart of the women than it does.
I would say there is an awful lot of partisan involved, but for me, the real problem is I don't like it.
Somebody's beating up the show next door.
Usually your numbers we're borrowing about 40% of our business companies on an annual basis. My big concern is our kids, because it seems that we haven't figured out how to pay our bills on an annual basis. Somehow we expect our children not only to figure out how to pay theirs, but ours too. So how is this going to be done? And how is it done without raising taxes?
I'm not sure that it is going to be done without raising taxes, but what I know right now about taxes in our economy, we have driven so many businesses out of business that adding more taxes right now isn't the answer. It's going to have to be the other way around. I am convinced that you have to actually generate that economic activity before people will say, we'll pay taxes. You know, the tax is such an interesting story. Did you know that we have the highest compliance rate of the world of voluntarily paying the taxes? It's a really terrific story.
Well, yeah, because they scare the pants off you if you don't.
Well,
voluntarily or not.
Actually, that's not quite the case. But you're right. So, but right now, because our economy is so fragile, adding more taxes and literally driving more people to the sidelines is not the answer. I'm not saying in the future we're not going to go back the other way, but right now I think it's the bad choice.
Well, but it's a disgrace. So who's gonna? What's the plan?
What's the plan? So for me, the plan is to release the power of our own economic engine, which is innovators who are sitting around this table. The small businesses, they're the ones who create the jobs. And by the way, as someone who looks at economic development in the state of New Mexico, I think it's time that we stop going after the companies that have 1,000 employees. I heard so many promises, we're going to have 8,000 employees. I would rather have 10 solid, sustainable small businesses that employ 100 people. A different approach. And none of this, I'd like to tell you it's going to be quick, but I have the same problem because I think it is immoral to saddle my kids with this debt. It's immoral. And so I'm going to do everything I can to find those answers, but I'm a realist. I'm going to chip away at it, one piling at a time until we get it. And I would be fibbing to you if I told you it was going to be immediate. It's just not. But for 10 years, by the time I come home, and about 10 years out of it, because I'm old,
Please.
that the debt will be significantly reduced. And will it be gone? Won't be gone. It just won't be. But we shouldn't be paying 40% of every dollar in interest. And that's the best that I can offer. But I take really good ideas. So if you got them, bring them on. I know that I'm taking over your meeting, and I actually do have stuff that we've got to do. Yes?
What I'd like to ask you is where in the Constitution does it give the sitting president the right to obligate all of the funds of his successor?
As an old parliamentarian and somebody who likes the Constitution, it does not. It does not. Nor does the Constitution grant the executive the right to suspend or alter law by executive order. However, there is a process. Part of the process is broken, and that is every time, our three branches of government is set up on necessary tension. So it is the role of Congress to stand up and say, no, can't do that. But your Congress has not done that in a number of years. And you absolutely have to stand up and say, you cannot do that, and you have to take specific action. And I would say that Harry Reid is probably part of the reason that that action has not been successful. It's time to change that.
Well, he's a good reason why we're in the mess we're in.
I agree. I agree. Anyway, great questions, great discussion. I can see the wheels turning in your head. and so this is serious stuff. And so any thought that you have, and I will just, if you like this level of discussion, I've been hosting a Saturday morning discussion group for 4.5 years at Southwest Secondary Learning Center, Candelaria and Morris. The coffee's pretty good. We talk, everybody, Republicans, Democrats, independents, all walks of life. But the truth is if we don't talk, we're not going to get there. And I truly, truly believe that.
And that's called conspiracy brews, right?
It is. And you are so welcome. And you can come late or leave early, and there are no demerits. It's a good deal. Anyway, thank you so much for letting me come. I so appreciate it. All right, now you have to work.
Mr. Kubiak, you have the floor.
I'll do my best. Well, we're so honored to have such attention.
I just wish we had more people
I'm
here
impressed.
to enjoy it.
All right. Well, thank you all for allowing me to come today and crash your meeting. But what I really think is important with tonight